My name is Hilliary Draper, and I am a grateful recovering alcoholic. Good evening. I cannot remember the exact year. I believe it must have been 71, maybe. I believe it must have been 71. I had a great sponsor. His name was Tom Pettis. He was the district attorney in Lawrence County. He's gone to heaven, so I can break his anonymity. He took one look at me and decided I needed him. I never asked him to be my sponsor. But he was good for me, and I came to love him. We had a love-hate relationship, but and one day when I was upstairs in the monastery, I got a letter, an envelope addressed to me, and on the inside was a copy of a letter which Tom Pettis had written to a man in Mississippi named Woody. It said, "Dear Woody, Father Hilliary will be happy to be a speaker at the State Convention of Mississippi AA in the Heidelberg Hotel in Jackson, Mississippi, August the 8th to the 11th. It doesn't matter where you put him on the program because we will be there from the early bird meeting until the last shot is fired." Paragraph. I know because I will bring him. Sincerely yours, Tom Pettis. And I said to myself when I read that letter, now, they've torn the sheet, they've gone too far. I cannot go over to Jackson, Mississippi, into the old Heidelberg Hotel, which was in Bishop Giroux's backyard, Paul, if you remember, and stand up and say, "My name is Hilliary Draper, and I am an alcoholic." There is no way I can do that. I just cannot. And Tom came to see me, and I said, "Tom, I can't do that. There's just no way I can do that." And Tom had an awful voice, and he said, "Yeah. Oh, here's an opportunity for you to make some amends that need desperate making, and all of a sudden you can't do it. Who was it who years ago spoke at an AA convention in Kentucky as a friend of AA when you were so far gone that you needed to be a member even then?" I said, "I'll go." The reason I told you that is because it is amazing what happens in this program. At that convention, the gentleman who introduced me could be the spitting image of the man who introduced me just now. Only he was much dressier. He had on a red and white striped blazer. He had a rose in his lapel, and he stood up behind the podium, and the first thing he said was, "Franklin! Franklin!" And Franklin Williams way in the back says, "Yeah, John, yeah, what you want?" He says, "You got color film in that camera?" He says, "Yeah, John." He said, "Well, that's fine, or else I'd waste $150 on this coat." That was John Witt. And it's John Witt who introduces me tonight. Man, you know, it just keeps getting better and better and better all the time. In my whole time in AA, I only found once that you all ever told me a lie. You always told me the truth. But one time you told me that the first year I spent in this program, 365 days, the first year I spent in this program would be the happiest that I ever spent. And I found that to be a lie. I'm sorry. What I have found is that each succeeding year that I spend in this program is better and happier than the one that went before. Oh, I've got troubles, got plenty of troubles. But each succeeding year, you know, they keep getting better, so they can't possibly get any better. And they do. I've been up on the pink cloud for I'm not going to tell you how long. But I had no intentions of coming down. My feet are firmly attached to the ground, and my head's in the clouds of AA. And I can live a day at a time. And that's wonderful as far as I'm concerned. I want to thank everybody who's done anything to get me here. They asked me for the first one 3 years ago, and I just couldn't come. I said, I can't do it. Nell called last year and asked me for the second one, and I said, I can't do it. I just can't come. I couldn't. It's honest. She said, well, put us down for 1989. And I almost didn't make this one. It's just that I didn't have enough nerve to cancel out. As of the 1st of September, I have moved from Colorado and have become a parish priest, PP. That's what they call them in Ireland. It's tremendous ego reduction. For 15 years, this chain really meant something. I mean, I was VIP in the Catholic Church. When I walked, the earth trembled. I had to resign when I became 65, and I was going to take it easy. But lo and behold, I was appointed Apostolic Administrator of Colorado. How you like that title? And that's over. And now I have a very small and inconspicuous parish in southeast Alabama, St. Joseph's. And so the days of glory are over. And I have been reduced to a status of the lowly parish priest. Twice in my 42-year career as a priest, I have been appointed pastors. Once I was pastor in Kentucky for about 4.5 years. And once I was pastor in the Delta of the Mississippi for about 4 years. But both times I was drunk. I don't know whether I can be pastor sober or not. We're going to find out, aren't we? Oh, Lord, Lord, Lord. But because I was going to a parish, and I would be expected, as the Baptists say, to fill the pulpit, and some of them have already said I have overflowed the pulpit, I just simply can't come to these conventions. I just cannot do it. They'll look for a new pastor. But I said, I just can't help it. I've been down there 2 Sundays, and here I am gone off. But I did not have the nerve to say to you all for the 3rd time, no, I can't come. And I want you to know that it has cost me an extra $100 to get some priest to take my place. But I'm not going to charge you for that. My thanks to anybody who had anything to do with getting me here, and a special thanks to the committee who put such a nice care package in my room. And I must recognize my wheelman. Stand up, William, and take a bow. I got a telephone call in Colorado before I left, and it said, Abbot Hilliary. I said, yeah. It said, this is Bill McKay. I thought I knew who you was. I said, yes, Bill. He says, I'm a member of your parish in Alabama, and I wanted you to know that AA meets in your parish hall every Tuesday night, and we are reserving a chair for you. They the order, huh? All right. Well, I'm going to try to make the best speech I've ever made in my life. And to do that, I'm going to qualify myself as shortly as I can, you know. When you're playing in the major leagues, when you got the speakers like you had this weekend, especially that one in that purple sack dress this afternoon, Ooh, Lord. You better do what's right. I was born at a very early age in a good Christian home. I've heard so many alcoholics say that I'm not sure it's anywhere to raise children anymore. But I was. Catholic home, Mobile, Alabama. We did not think it was wrong to drink in moderation. I cannot tell you when I had my first drink. It was always there. We didn't drink every day. But it was part and parcel almost of our religion. We got 7 sacraments. And we drank for baptism. We drank for confirmations. We drank for first communions. We drank... You Cajuns know what I'm talking about. We drank for weddings. We drank for funerals. We drank for ordinations. The only thing we didn't drink for was confession. And some of us had to take a few drinks to get ready for that. So if it can be said of anybody that he had an education of how to drink like a gentleman, it should have been me. You know, I saw drunkenness at an early age, had a great relationship of 6 aunts and an adopted aunt, and they had their own population explosions. They were all built like ice cream cones. You remember when they used to use whale bones, and when they gave you a hug, they'd crack your ribs? Well, Lord have mercy, I don't have how many cousins I've got. We had one called him Uncle Harry, who was kind of leader of the pack. Whenever that tribe got together for weddings or funerals or what have you, Uncle Harry was always taking a few more drinks to steady his nerves. The only thing is he'd get so steady he couldn't move. The other uncles would have to carry him home. And I can remember my mother saying to us children the next day, the kids, if you saw Uncle Harry last night, and if you find that drinking does that to you, you don't drink. But you saw your other uncles and aunts, perfect ladies and gentlemen. So it should have been, you know, I don't know. I didn't even know what alcoholism was or is. It wasn't until I got to you all that I discovered it was a disease, that it was a mental obsession tied up with a physical compulsion to drink. The definition that I got of an alcoholic from my religious superiors and from the people that I knew was that I was a bum, a disgrace, no good, just absolutely dragged my own good name through the mire of drunkenness, just terrible. And of course I believed it. And people were saying to me, if you just were a better priest, you wouldn't drink like that. And I was trying all I could do. I didn't know it was a disease. And I never did know for a long time why I got the disease. Why me? How come I'm an alcoholic? With my splendid aristocratic Southern background, if the truth was known, degenerate Southern aristocracy, a splendid education, college degrees, an eminent divine, at least Malachi of the second water. What am I doing a drunk? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And I asked them in Cullman, my home group, after I'd been in the group for about 2 years, I said, now, what I want to know is, why am I an alcoholic? That great silence came over the group when they all know the answer and they're waiting to see who's going to zap the fool, you know. Finally, after that silence went on, Juby spoke up. Juby's one of my sponsors. He says, oh, hell, Father Hilliary. It don't make no difference how the jackass got into the ditch. Just get him out. Do you hear the wonderful wisdom of Alcoholics Anonymous? So I quit wondering why I'm an alcoholic. I don't wonder anymore. I don't see any real evidence of my alcoholism. I do see some character defects early on in my life. My father was dead when I was 4 years old. I know today I resented God for that. Many people lose a parent early on. They don't make a federal case out of it. But I did. People would say, poor child, he doesn't have a father. And I'd say, yeah, poor child, I don't have a daddy. I had a marvelous grandfather who was the male image in my life, a wonderful mother. But it wasn't the same. And I milked it for all it was worth. I was the kind of kid that when they picked sides for games, they'd say, we'll give you 2 extra if you take him. That's the way it was. That's the way it was. That's the way it was. When I was 15 years old, my mother felt that I needed more men in my education, and she sold me up the river from Mobile, Alabama, to the tender mercies of the Benedictines at Cullman. Now, if you want to know where Cullman is, the best I can tell you, it's 40 miles south of the Jack Daniels distillery. Now, when I give you that description of a location, it should give you some indication of what's going on in my mind. I told you I can't remember when I had my first drink. It was always there. And I got to Cullman, and I was very homesick, and I was a misfit, but I did get in with some of the families of my classmates whose mothers and fathers lived in Cullman, and who at that time, the housewives, wait their name, all knew how to squeeze that grape and make that German-type grape juice. Only they did it with Cullman County strawberries. And if you all have never tasted Cullman County strawberry wine before you got into AA, it's just too late. You will have to wait till you get to heaven. The most glorious color of red I have ever seen. An aroma, a bouquet, you could smell it in the next block when they took the cork out of the bottle. And a kick like the proverbial Missouri mule. But again, you were in no trouble. You had a glass of homemade wine, a piece of cake, fine. I loved everything about Cullman so much. In St. Bernard, I asked if I could join the monastery. They said I could try. In 1941, 19 years old, I entered the monastery. And I began to find out the 33rd degree secrets, among the greatest of which was that the monks were not about to be outdone by the housewives of Cullman, Alabama. And they too knew how to squeeze that grape, make that German-type grape juice, and they made a little homebrew on the side. You talk about a revelation to the Gentiles. The monks didn't drink every day. They didn't even drink every week. But on a big feast day for an hour after Vespers, if you know the word Gemütlichkeit in German, they'd come together with cigars and cold meats and sandwiches and home brew and the homemade wine, pink lemonade for the panty waists. But I see right there that looking back, it meant more to me. I was always the first one there and the last one to leave. I was always figuring out when is the next time this is going to happen. At that time, as a novice in the monastery, I'd already set my pattern for drinking. My pattern for drinking was you drink as much as you can, as long as you can, as often as you can, whenever you can. And the only two things that ever made me quit drinking, the only two things, either I was too sick to drink anymore or there wasn't anything left to drink. And that's not normal social drinking. It just isn't. I experienced my first blackout at Christmas time in the monastery. You know blackouts, don't you? Yes. We drink and drink and drink and drink and drink. The body to save its own life, short-circuits some of the systems. You go unconscious. You slide under the table. And there you stay until the next morning or somebody carries you home. That's not blacking out. That's passing out. And I've passed out too. But in blacking out, you drink and drink and drink and drink and drink. And again, the body to save its own life short-circuits some of the systems. But this time you go into, quote, temporary amnesia, unquote. You don't remember what happened. And a word to you good Al-Anons. You say to your alcoholic, where were you last night? He says, I don't know. And you say, quit lying. He may not be lying at all. He may not have the slightest clue where he was. He knows where he started out to go, but he doesn't know where he was. And you say to him, and who were you with? He says, I don't know. And you say, lying again. He may not be lying. He may not have this phenomenon of the blackout is attested to by literally thousands of us suffering alcoholics in the past 50-some years. And the reason I emphasize it is because it is almost a Satan sign that you're a little bit pregnant. There's no such thing, they tell me, as being a little bit pregnant. You either are or you aren't, one of the two. And there's no such thing as being a little bit alcoholic. You either are or you aren't. And if you, listening to me out there, have experienced what I have just described, perhaps you should move your letter from the Al-Anon room across to the AA room. Yes. Yes. Well, there I am. I'm experiencing a blackout, almost a Satan sign. Being an intelligent kid, 19 years old, I have to account for the fact of that lapse of memory. 3 hours, Christmas Eve, around that time. I don't remember a thing. What happened? I think I knew way back in the back of my mind that alcohol had something to do with it. But you see, at that time, I loved everything there was about alcohol. I was one of the people who loved the smell. I loved the taste. I was the kind that could take a great big mouthful, hold it, and let it trickle down my goozle, and lick my chops after it was gone. If that upsets you, I'm sorry. But that's the way it was with me. But I have to account for this phenomenon. And after I consider it with Aristotelian Thomistic principles of philosophy, I come to the astounding conclusion that it was the cheese. Now, you talk about alcohol being cunning, baffling, and powerful. Alcoholics are cunning, baffling, and powerful. You know, everybody knows he's a drunk. His wife knows it. His kids know it. His boss knows it. Everybody knows it. His dog knows it. You ever seen a dog that lives in an alcoholic home and go in and find the old man drunk? Man, that dog will make himself scarce. Cats won't. They're too dumb. But the last person to now admit and accept that he's an alcoholic is the alcoholic himself. And so I come to the conclusion it was the cheese. There it is. 19 years old, almost a Satan sign that I got it. Well, it's a progressive disease. That means it gets worse. It doesn't get better. And I simply progressed, period. For a long time, as a young man, I could drink all night long if the stuff held out, take a shower the next morning and go on about my business. But, you know, the horrible part about this disease is that it affects the totality of the human personality. It destroys us. We come apart spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. Yeah. And the even worse part of the disease is that it not only affects the poor alcoholic and destroys him, but it destroys the people who are closest to him or her and who love him or her the most. Generally the four people who are closest to us, their lives are destroyed too. Well, I didn't have anybody that close to me. I was in a monastery with, that time, some 60 or 70 brethren. And the disease progressed. I was ordained in 47. Believe me, if Archbishop Cullman had known that I was an alcoholic, and I crossed that line, he would not have ordained me. The Catholic Church has enough trouble without ordaining drunk monks. In 1952, we had a new boss, one of our own. One of the first things he did was to send me a letter telling me that I was going to Barberville, Kentucky to replace Father Timothy. They needed him home to teach philosophy. I didn't think they could run that school without me. Of course, we hadn't been talking, me and the boss. We never did talk. I got that letter and I said to Father Malachi, where in the Lord's holy name is Barberville? He said, you go to hell, turn left, and walk 3 miles. He was wrong. It was only 2 miles. Oh, Lord have mercy. You want to hear it, so I'll tell it. The very first morning I was there, Timothy was still there. He followed me in this program about a year. He's gone to heaven, so I'm not breaking his anonymity. But we had finished saying Mass, and he said, you eat your meals over there at Aunt Sally Coon's house. That's right across the field there. It's your house, and Uncle Albert Coon, her husband, is a Catholic, and he minds the buildings while you're riding the circuit. Whenever you're in town, she feeds you. So we go over to Aunt Sally Coon's for breakfast. Hot September. We're in a kitchen at a deal table. Aunt Sally looks like nothing so much as you've seen Mammy Yoakum in the funny papers. And we're sitting at the table. Uncle Albert is there. Here I am. There's Timothy. Uncle Albert's son is a state trooper. He's in his 30s. His two sons, 18 and 16, all they got on is pair of shorts. And the conversation is difficult. Sitting in front of me is a water tumbler, beaded, cold. I picked it up and took two great big swallows. Well, you've seen the atomic bomb blasts. There was this explosion went off in my head. There was this roaring like Hugo through the room. I couldn't see. I couldn't hear. The hackles on my neck stood straight up. I'm convinced that if I had not been an alcoholic, I would have screamed bloody murder. But I don't. I just hang on tight till the tremors pass. This is true. I'm not making up a thing. When I can see again, Uncle Albert's got a glass. Timothy's got one. The trooper's got one. The kids don't. Well, after that breakfast, Timothy and I were walking high over the weeds going back to the church. And I said to him, in the Lord's holy name, what was in that water glass? He said, moonshine, 120 proof. I said, for breakfast? He says, anytime you can get it. Yeah, Lord, that was my first introduction to moonshine. I'd never tasted moonshine before. But what a glorious place to send a budding alcoholic, huh? And I bloomed. Progressed. I say I didn't get any trouble in Kentucky. I was there 4 years about. That's not true. I wasn't doing the job that I could have been doing if I wasn't drinking alcoholically. You see, alcoholic drinking takes time. It's just that I didn't get arrested. I didn't get caught. I returned to the Abbey as dean of the college, but now I'm hooked. I got to have it. I don't have to drink it, but I got to have it. I last there about 4 years, and these terrible personality clashes up with the boss, and I get another geographical kill removal, this time to the delta of the Mississippi. Do any of y'all know where Shaw is? Well, are you looking at the former pastor of Shaw? And I got news for you all. You somebody from Mississippi. If you think the delta of the Mississippi is in southwest Louisiana, you are mistaken. It begins in the lobby of the Peabody Hotel in Memphis, and it goes down the river 40 miles on the Mississippi side, 20 miles on the Arkansas side. You come to Yazoo City. And if you all haven't lived in the delta of the Mississippi, you don't know what the South is all about. Natchez to the contrary notwithstanding, hoops, gates, and all. Those people in the delta do not know the Civil War was lost. They don't even know it was fought and couldn't care less. You talk about drinking as a way of life, and did I fit in? Oh, Lord have mercy. This was the long, hot, dry summers. Mississippi was dry. Lord have mercy. There I was in Shaw, and you could walk right down to Mamie's and say, give me a double shot with a beer chaser. You couldn't even do that in Memphis. The priest used to come see me, and I'd take him down to Mamie's on purpose. Say anything you want. They'd say, right out here in public? I said, yeah, I own the place. A towering ego, see. Oh, Lord have mercy. I had an awful time getting booze. I'm not going to tell you all that story. But there I had come to paradise. I could pick up the telephone and say, Mamie, and she'd say, be right there, Father. Now, another Malachi used to say, when you tell that story, Hilliary, be sure they know that Mamie was a bootlegger. You're a little slow. And Mamie would bring the stuff in, take the dead soldiers out, give them decent Christian burial, send you a bill at the end of the month. Had it laid in the shade. But I was coming apart at the seams. I was supposed to be a priest. I was supposed to be telling people how to run their lives. I got to the point where I couldn't stand myself. It was bad. It was bad. I didn't know night from day. That's the truth. Somebody was here today and walked up to me and said, hello, Father Hilliary. You taught me plain geometry in Greenville back in the 1960s. I was so pleased to see her. She's an Al-Anon. Her husband's in AA. She said, I ran into you in a tape. And I said to my husband, he used to teach me plain geometry. Well, I was coming upon at the seams. And you know, they say, as Shakespeare says, murder will out. Alcoholism will out. There's no way that you can keep it hid. You think you can keep it hid for a while. I love the Al-Anon who once said, you drunks think you had a terrible time hiding the bottle. You should have tried hiding the alcoholic. And priests, friends of mine, Mississippi priests, were saying to me, hey, Father Hilliary, you're drinking too much. You better be careful. You better watch out. And they would say, you know, how about a little more prayer? How about more reception of the sacraments? And I was trying. But it didn't get any better. It just simply got worse. I never intended to get drunk in my life. But those years, every time I started out drinking, I ended up drunk, period. We had a new boss at Cullman, a Yankee from up in Minnesota. Didn't know a blessed thing, come down to the South to save us all. Thank God he did come, and he did save me. Got word one day he was on his way to Dallas and he was going to stop overnight in Shaw. And I thought, oh, Lord, somebody's been snitching. Here comes this boss, I don't know from nothing. He got there. We had a dinner that you wouldn't believe the dinner we had. We had drinks before supper, drinks with supper, drinks after supper. I didn't touch a thing. When the old man went to bed, he had his aide de camp with him, a priest. And I said, what does the boss want here? Well, he said, didn't he talk to you? I said, well, no more than you heard while we were all together. Oh. He said, well, you have been nominated the 7th president of St. Bernard College at Cullman. And he's the chancellor and chairman of the board of trustees. And he said before he acted on the nomination, he thought he ought to come over here and interview you. And he told me before he retired that he was well pleased and he was going to accept the nomination. And I got the bid to be president of the college. And what's the towering ego? With my track record up until this time, any sane person would have said, no, I can't take that. What does the towering ego of the alcoholic say? Certainly I'll take that job. That'll show these people whether or not I'm drinking too much. They wouldn't offer this job to a drunk. And I know today, well, it's true. Shaw gave me a glorious send-off. What I know today is they were saying, thank God he's gone. But because of this blessed program, and God, whom I choose to call higher power, and many people just like you all, I've been able to go back to the Delta and make some amends. I can go back today and hold up my head. I came home and was president of the college for about 3.5 years. And everything that hadn't happened to me, that happens to drunks, happened in those 3.5 years. Everything. You know, jail. I'm not proud of that fact. I remember, and I hope I never forget it to my dying day, waking up in that jail, 3 o'clock in the morning. I thought, where am I? It's a funny bed I'm sleeping on. There's no mattress. And when I got my eyes open, I saw bars on the window. I thought, oh, Lord, you played hell this time. You talk about a resentment. I got up and I looked out that window, and the way they built that jail, I could not tell if I was in New Orleans, Memphis, Nashville, Birmingham, New York, or Rome, Italy. I don't know about these parts, but in Alabama, in the small towns, there's always somebody who is Mr. or Mrs. Catholic Church. And when anything goes with the Catholic Church, they call them up. Well, that night they called up Mr. Frank. And they said, Mr. Frank, we got a priest down here, drunk and disorderly, DUI. And Frank says, what's his name? Said, well, it says on his driver's license, Hilliary Draper from Cullman. What do you want to do with him? Mr. Frank says, leave him in jail. I'll get him in the morning. The reason I'm telling you that is because about 6 o'clock in the morning, they came and got me out of the cell. Said, come on, there's somebody down here to get you. I would rather have faced Pope John Paul II than to have seen Mr. Frank. Because Mr. Frank turned out to be the chairman of the lay board of trustees of the hotshot college of which I was president. And there he is fishing his president out of the drunk tank. But again, I got away with it. I said, Frank was a marvelous man. And we got to be great friends after I got in this program. But he said, we've got to do something about this, Father Hilliary. This is bad, bad, bad. And I said, Frank, I was just up at the country club and got too much cheese. I sold it to him. Oh, Lord. I still had a good year and a half to run. And things just simply got worse and worse and worse. I can't tell it to you all. But my bottom finally came on a day in December when the college president was to make a report on the state of the nation, that is, the college, to all the important people. And I made that speech. It was at night after a dinner. And all the important people in the college were there. All the monks who taught in the college, all the lay professors, the student government, the senate of the faculty, the board of trustees, the board of governors. They were all there, about maybe 150, 200 of them. And I made that speech. But the last thing I remember, and this is the truth even to this day, the last thing I remember that day, it was 4:30 in the afternoon, and I was taking one more drink to steady my nerves. And I went into a blackout. And to this day, I don't remember a thing. When I tell you that, I can begin to shake and to begin to sweat, because I can imagine what it must have been like for those wonderful people to sit there and have to watch and listen to the obviously drunken Catholic priest, president of the college. Figuratively, I had slit my throat from ear to ear. I noticed the next morning it was a little cool on the campus. A few days later, I was in to see the chancellor, and I was throwing dust, as we all do, to keep me from seeing what's really happening. He says, sit down, I want to say something to you. And I sat down. He says, we had a board of trustees meeting yesterday. I said, you did? I wasn't there. You didn't notify me. He says, no, but we had a quorum. And nasty I am, and towering ego. I said, what was on the agenda? And he looked at me with all the compassion in his face. He said, there was only one thing on the agenda, and that's your resignation. And it is effective immediately. And he read me the riot act in 7 beautiful Technicolor scenes. That's when he told me what I was. And I believed him. That's when he told me I had disgraced my own good family name, that I had dragged the name of the priesthood through the mire of drunkenness, that I had outraged the monastery, that I was a scandal to good Catholic people. It was just horrible. And the reason I tell you all that is, he tells me, you cannot stay here. We have had enough of you. I wish you'd go someplace and get some help with your drinking problem. If you will not, then I'll help you get a job somewhere else in this country. You're a good teacher, but you cannot stay here. No longer a priest in good standing. No longer a home. That day, I had lost everything that meant anything to me in my life up to that time. Namely, the priesthood in St. Bernard and Cullman. And if you told me I could ever get him back, I'd told you no way. Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. Humpty Dumpty's broken. You can't put him back together again. But the point of all of this is, having lost everything that meant anything to me in life, when he finally let me out of that office, I went right downstairs and had another drink to steady my nerves. Having lost everything, I went right downstairs to have another nip at the tit of old Betsy. Talk about the second step in insanity. Oh, Lord have mercy. Well, the old man had heard of a place called Hazelden up in the wilds of Minnesota that had a reputation for doing good for people who were bad to drink. And on January the 14th, 1968, which I count my sobriety date, I arrived in Hazelden. Well, I was not drinking. I was scared to death. But I did not know what they did to help you with your alcoholism. I didn't know whether they cut something out of you, whether they stuffed something up in you, whether they blew through your ears, whether they turned your head around. I didn't know. There are what I call gold-plated souse traps that'll take you in, dry you out, introduce you to the pills, and turn you loose to run again. But Hazelden in those far-off days had only one program, and that was the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And in 1960, there weren't a great number of treatment centers that had much success. Guest House certainly didn't. And the Paracletes, they didn't. They were pushing all the wrong buttons. And all Hazelden was doing in 21 days, 3 weeks, was taking you through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and trying to get you in small groups to face yourself. Well, the first morning I was there, they took me down to see the counselor, and the first thing the counselor says to me was, "Now, Father Hilliary, we're not going to call you Father Hilliary anymore, because you ain't nothing but a goddamn drunk." Oh, mercy. Did that get my attention? You know, I was going to call up the boss at Cullman and say, "You know, you sent me up here with blasphemers as well as profaners." He said, "Here you are with that black dickie on and that Roman collar like butter would melt in your mouth. You got no right to wear it. Take it off." Do you see the towering ego? There I am in a treatment center for alcoholics. Oh, dear Lord in heaven, like I'm going to say Mass or do something. He says, "Take it off, and we will not call you Father." And they didn't. And then he says, "Don't plan on 3 weeks for this program." I said, "Well, of course not. I reckon I'll get it in 2. He says, "Oh, no. He says, "We find for doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, undertakers, druggists, college professors, and ministers, it takes 3 and 4 times as long to get this simple program." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you all keep up such a dreadful front. It takes a long time to find out where the real Hilliary is." And they were right. Oh, Lord have mercy. We went through the 3 weeks program. I know the 12 steps. We went through them a second time. They had given me a big book. That's not true. They sold it to me. And they said, "Read this." I opened it up right away to see if it had an imprimatur from a Catholic bishop. Approval. It did not. I said, most likely it's Baptist foot washing literature printed in Nashville, and I won't read it. And I wouldn't. I would not read the big book. Nope. No way. Now, at the same time, they sold me the little 24-hour-a-day book. That didn't have the bishop's approval in it. But I love that. Do you see? Don't try to make sense as an alcoholic. He doesn't make any sense. And there I was. I don't know how long I had been. I know we went through those things 3 times at least. And I thought, oh, Lord. After about, I guess, 8 or 9 weeks, it became apparent to my cunning alcoholic brain that if I didn't take, work, or do the first 5 steps, because that was Hazelden's treatment at that time, you had to take the first 5 steps of this glorious program. And if you didn't, I concluded I would be in Hazelden till Gabriel blew his damn horn. And I decided I didn't want to stay that long. So I stayed up one night, and I read the first 164 pages of the big book. Now, you know, such stuff has been getting in through osmosis. But that night I read the book. First 164. Stayed up all night. Couldn't wait for breakfast. Shot down to that counselor's office. I said, "I have got step 1. My life's unmanageable. I'm powerless over alcohol." He says, "You ain't got nothing. Get back." I said, "I have got step 1. My life's unmanageable. I'm powerless over alcohol." He says, "You are loaded with resentments." I said, "I don't resent anybody." I resented God. I resented the abbot. I resented all the monks of St. Bernard. I resented all the kids in the college. You were right. I was loaded with resentments. Just loaded with resentments. Oh, mercy. But finally, I got through steps 1 to 5. And no, they were so encouraging. When I got through step 5, they said, well, where do we send the body? You see, because I'm not the first priest in Alabama who have trouble with drinking. I am the first priest who ever caught this blessed program of recovery. There are many more of us in Alabama today. But in those far-off, dumb days, if we had a priest that somehow or another you could get him dried out, we never let him return to the scene of the crime. We sent him to Mississippi, or Louisiana, or New Mexico. Go west, young man, go west. We never let him return to the scene of the crime. And it was the AA people who said to me, when you go back to Cullman, you can tell people you're an alcoholic. I said, of course not. It's the dumbest thing I ever heard. We don't run around in Alabama with a big sign, watch out for me, I got tuberculosis. No. And I said, furthermore, you know I cannot go back to Cullman. I just finished the 5th step. And that man said to me, why can't you go back to Cullman? I said, you know. He said, were you running around with women? I said, no. He said, did you embezzle the college's money? I said, no. Notice again the realism of this program. If I had been running around with women in Cullman, maybe it wouldn't have been the place to send me back. If I had embezzled the college's money, maybe I couldn't have gone back. But they said, you lost the job as president of the college. You were thrown out of the monastery because of the disease of alcoholism. When are you going to quit running? The bank president might have to go back, not as president of the bank, but pick up the pieces. You go back. I said, all right, I'll go back. Now you convinced the board of trustees and the monks of St. Bernard to let me come back. And you know what he did, they did, and I did. I did not get directly back. As far as I can remember, and these things are kind of vague, I remember that I spent St. Patrick's Day in that treatment center. That's March the 17th. I told you I got there January the 14th, January, February, March. That's 2 weeks. I believe I celebrated Easter up there, too. That was a month after that, at least. But anyhow, they said I couldn't come home directly. And they sent me to an extended care situation. I actually got back to Cullman on the 1st of September. And I'll cut through all that. I wish I could say that I got back to Cullman 1st of September, found AA, and lived happily ever after. I did not. I sponsor people today, and my advice is, you go to the meetings. 90 meetings, 90 days, you go to the meetings, you read the big book. I didn't go to the meetings. I stayed a loner from the 1st of September until the next January the 14th. Yeah. All the money they spent on me, what have I learned? Nothing. I did read the big book, and I did try to share my experience, strength, and hope with Father Malachi, the big Malachi, not the one who spoke so eloquently this morning. But what did I have to carry? I didn't have any message. I didn't have any message. But there was a priest who loved me very much. I couldn't find AA. And one day he walked up to me and he said, here's the number. AA is alive and well in Cullman. He said, call them. And every day he'd say, you call? I said, yeah, they don't answer. And finally he got on to the alcoholic, you know. If you want to know something from an alcoholic, you got to ask the right question. He says, when are you calling? I said, midnight. I'm not joking. He says, call him now. And I did. And I got Juby. And I said, Mr. G, this is Father Hilliary out at college. I'm an alcoholic and I need to go to an AA meeting. There was this long silence. The first thing Juby ever said to me, he's got a raspy voice, was, Father, are you drunk now? Again, do you see the realism? Cut through the whole thing. That's the point. And I said, no. Well, he said, good. We have a meeting tonight at 8 o'clock. At that time, that was the only day they had a meeting. One meeting a week. And that's the day I called. He said, we have a meeting tonight at 8 o'clock. I'll pick you up at 7:30. Notice again, if you're sponsoring somebody, he doesn't tell me where they're meeting. He doesn't tell me how to get there. He says, I will pick you up at 7:30. And I said, well, that's fine, Mr. G, but don't come to the front of the college. I will meet you down on the road to the cemetery under the tall pine trees in the dark of the moon. Now, I'm not proud of that, but Murphy's laughing because she knows that road to the cemetery. She's seen those tall pine trees, and so has Malachi, and so has Paul. And if you come, I'll show you the bushes I crawled out from under to get in his car and go to my first AA meeting. That's the truth. And I wish I could tell you that I walked up those steps to the AA club room and it was glory, hallelujah, and it was horrible. Oh, mercy, they had a little place about as big as the restroom over there. And the plaster was coming down off the ceiling, the wallpaper was rolling down off the walls, they had a hole in the floor where they struck the dirt down on the man next to them, a nasty old couch over there with springs coming out, one light bulb hanging down, and about 10 people, and they all looked like snake handlers of foot-washing Baptists to me. And I thought, oh, my Lord, am I going to stay here all my life? Oh, dear. Now, I'm sorry, I don't want you to feel bad. If you're a snake handler or you're a foot-washing Baptist, it's not that way today. We love you very much, and if you want what we got, we want you, period. But that's the way it was with me at that time. I'm standing outside the door looking. Juby has disappeared. A good sponsor knows when to disappear. And I was thinking, if I could just get home, I'll never come back here again. And while I'm thinking that, here comes this lady. She was dressed up. I'm telling you, she looked like $1 million. I knew her as a fine Catholic matron from Decatur, about 30 miles up the road. I did not know she was an alcoholic. I had worked with her on different church projects. She came up the steps and walked up to me and says, hello, Father Hilliary. We're so glad to see you. If you need this program, just come on in. You're going to be all right. And she put her arm through my arm, and she mesmerized me right through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I tell you that, I have to stop, because I shudder to think what it would have happened to me in my pride, my arrogance, if that woman hadn't been there that night. And I was 2 years in the program before they thought I was well enough to let me know that she was a shill, and it was a whole put-up program. That after I had called Juby, he called Rosemary and said, come down to Cullman tonight. I need you. She says, I can't. I'm chairing my own meeting. He says, I don't care what you're doing. You get down here. I need you tonight. I got a Catholic priest coming in here. I know a damn thing about Catholics, much less priests. And you are a Catholic. You get down here and you help me with him. And when the poor, stupid, drunken Catholic priest is trying to get through the doors of AA, there's Rosemary holding out the hand of the fellowship. I, just like somebody else, I believe I would be dead or crazy today if Rosemary hadn't been there. Rosemary's still in the program. She's not so well. She can't go to as many meetings as she used to. She just lost her husband, but she made that all right. And I'll tell you, I'll walk a long, long way for Rosemary. Well, that was the beginning. Oh, Lord, that was the beginning. And what a beginning it was. So many wonderful stories. We only had one meeting a week at that time. And that very first time I was there, they said, some of our fellowship feels the need for a closed meeting. So we're going to start a closed meeting next Friday. And I spoke up, well, that's just fine, because I don't like the open meetings, and a closed meeting every week will do me just fine. And Juby said to Hoyt, if that big fat priest only comes once a week, he'll be drunk in short order. And so they set out to convince me that I needed more meetings. And in those years, they would go around to go to different places. And they'd say, if you want to go to a meeting any night, just be down at the club room at 7 o'clock, and Carl will come by and pick you up, and off we'll go. And they'd say to me, we're going up to Decatur tonight. Come on, go with us. I said, no, thank you. They said, we're going down to Birmingham tonight. Come and go with us. No, thank you. We're going over to Jasper. No. Well, they kept it up so bad, I thought, well, maybe I ought to go and help the poor devils. And I was hooked. I was hooked. We ran, I'm telling you, for a while they were keeping a record. I think we had gone around the world 3 times until somebody told us that was an ego trip and cut it out. But some of those car trips I'll never forget. They let us take the drunks out of the county jail, take them to meetings. Every once in a while we'd lose one, but the county judge said, that's all right, we'll get him back next week. And this one night there was a little couple. They were both in the program. We had gotten him out of the county jail, and we were going to Birmingham to a meeting. This is too good a story. His father knew it. And Juby he was a crackerjack salesman for the Ford people. And he always borrowed a car to carry us in style. And he had a great big Lincoln town car. I don't know what it was, but big car. And he was driving. I was in the front seat, and somebody else, maybe Malachi, was in the seat. And in the back there was another one, and this little couple. And we were laughing and talking, and, the conversation lagged, and this Evelyn was her name. Evelyn says in this little bitty voice, she says, well, as I says to Billy, look what we've drinked ourselves into. High-class society and a great big automobile. Well, I thought I'd die. I didn't know what to say. High society, a great big automobile. So there was this silence, and finally Juby spoke up. She says, well, Evelyn, honey, we all thanks you, but it ain't nothing really but a car full of drunks. And I came over to Mississippi, and the boy's father entertained us royally, and the boy's mother entertained us royally. And we were going out for lunch from the Heidelberg Hotel. And he says, we'll meet you there at the carport. Some of y'all remember how the cars went around underneath there? And glory be to God, here he came with a solid gold Cadillac. And he's laughing and laughing at that story. And we get in, and I said, dear God in heaven, look what we've drinked ourselves into. Oh, mercy, mercy, mercy. Oh, I'm all right. No, y'all kept me too late. I got 5 or 6 more minutes. And I have to tell you this, the sponsor tells me I'm supposed to. In 1972, the boss man at Cullman retired. And the monks, the 33rd degree monks, that is, the rookies don't get to vote, they put themselves incommunicado, and they begin to pray, and they vote for a new boss man. We don't have any stove with white smoke, but when they do effect an election, they ring all the tower bells. And that was in August the 21st, 1972. When the young monks come, who was elected? Who's the new abbot? The word went out that the 7th abbot of St. Bernard was Father Hilliary. And the young monks are running all through the halls shouting, all the way with AA. That said something very special to me about the monks of St. Bernard. And I realized that I needed this program more for the next 15 years when I sat in that catbird seat than I ever needed them before. And it was only because of the support which I found in this program that I was able to carry the burden of being the boss man a day at a time. And you taught me how to do it gracefully and graciously and happily, and I was thrilled with that. I became 65 some years later. I guess it was, I don't know, I can't keep up with the years. And I had to retire. And I was going to go to Europe on a sabbatical. Really live it up, learn some new theology and come back, Paul. And I got trapped. Got a telephone call. I was in Key West. This came from the boss man and said, are you sitting down? I said, no. He says, well, I think you better. And I sat down. He says, we've got some trouble in Colorado, and the commission would like to ask if you will please go out as apostolic administrator to Colorado. And I said, well, how long have I got to make up my mind? He said, well, tomorrow morning will do. I have seldom asked my higher power for a sign, but I was so torn about whether I wanted to go to Colorado or not. I said in my meditations, Lord, please give me a sign. Let me know. Should I go or should I stay? I really don't particularly want to go. I'd rather stay. Well, the next morning at Mass, we were saying Mass, and there was a lady who had the lessons. And she begins to read from the book of Joshua. And you can find it in chapter 4. And she read, and the Lord said to Joshua, you will cross the Jordan and you will go with these people. They are my people, and I will be with you and I will be with them. You will go with these people. I'm sitting there in the church and I'm looking. I'm saying, oh dear God in heaven. The reason I tell you all that is I went to Colorado, but I went and I had been, say 19 years in this program, and I thought, I've hewn my wood and I've hauled my water, and I'm going to just be a bleeding deacon or an elder statesman. Now that's all there is to it. Well, I knew I had to go to the program to stay sober. So I went on Saturday nights to Canyon City, the Saturday Night Live group. It wasn't AA like I knew it in the South, but it was AA. Well, I hadn't been going too long before I got a telephone call that said, Father Hilliary, this is Bill Leonard. Bill Leonard was in charge of the prison programs for AA. And there were 8 state prison facilities in Canyon City. He said, I wish you'd come see me. I did. He said, I have 2 groups, one in 4 Mile and one in Skyline, that don't have any sponsors. Would you be good enough to sponsor those 2 groups for me? Well, I could see Tom Pettis on the pearly gates looking at me, you know. And I thought, there'll be a lightning bolt that'll strike me if I say no. I said yes. The reason I tell you that is, if you haven't had the glorious experience of sponsoring a group behind the walls, you have missed something in AA. You know, they say there's no such thing as this is my group. You know, that's bad. But when you're in prison, they can't meet unless the sponsor is there. And so in a very special relationship, it becomes your group. And I was there some 2 years. And I am here to tell you that to see AA work in the prison system was unbelievable. Let me just give you a statistic. I shared this with somebody in Minnesota not too long ago. In Colorado, they had kept the records for 8 years. As you may know, a lot of people go to prisons not once but twice. They're what you call recidivists. And most of the people I had to deal with were there for second or third time. They were real hard-nosed. But we could show you on the statistics, everybody who came in that had a drug-related or an alcohol-related problem had to take a course in education. But after that, it was up to them as to whether they wanted to go to AA or NA, although they were in the prison. But the statistics would show that if you had come to prison for the second time, and there was drug-related or alcohol-related crime, and you did not do anything about it, the chances were, pay attention, 97 out of 100 that you would be back. But that if you went to AA, the chances for your coming back were inverse to the number of meetings you went to. They could actually show that if you had gone to 200 and something meetings in the time you were in the prison, your chances of coming back were less than 1 in 100. Talk about a marvelous program. Less than 1 in 100. And so there I was with a complete new life in AA. It never quits. When I found out I was going to southeastern Alabama, to the little town of Lillian, to be a pastor, telephone rang when I was still out in Colorado, and says, Abbott Hilliary. I said, yes. He says, this is Bill McKay. I said, yes. I know you, don't I? He says, yes, I'm a member of your parish in southeast Alabama. He said, I just thought you'd like to know that there's an AA meeting in your parish hall every Tuesday night, and we are reserving a chair for you. Now, how do you like that? Huh? How do you like that? Just right there in your hand. Well, I'm done now. There's just one other story I'd like to tell you. Father Malachi, the young Father Malachi, we used to call him in Alabama, told you some of his story. And it has been a joy to watch him grow in the program. There's another one who came to us and stayed with us, and that's Paul H. I looked for him all day yesterday. I couldn't find him. He came when I was over taking a nap today and fussed at me because he couldn't find me. But we had a glorious reunion this evening. He's a priest. He's here. And all I know is that it is a positive joy to come to Mississippi and see so many of you all whom I have come to know through the years, but especially to spend the day, some part of the day, with those two. It means a great deal to me. The last story. In 1973, I had the opportunity of going to the Holy Land and walking in the footsteps of Jesus. That would never have happened if it hadn't been for AA. It was a VIP tour. There were 14 of us, and I'm telling you, they carried us around. You know, that's all right. I can live with that. But what happened to me, everywhere as we went in the Holy Land, we went to Bethlehem, we went to Golgotha, we went everywhere. And all I could do was weep. All I could do was just cry. And the bishops would come and say, Father Hilliary, what's the matter? Why are you crying? And you know, I do not know whether it's what we call in religion the gift of tears, or whether it was me just trying to make amends for the wretched job I had done as priest. I don't know. But I knew that you all had told me, and I told them, I said, just get away. AA told me I can cry anytime I want to. I do not know. But I do know that the part of Bethlehem, that tour, the part of the Holy Land which made the greatest impression on me was Bethany. Bethany. You can see it in the scriptures. It's where Martha and Mary and Lazarus lived. They were great friends of Jesus's. And it looks like whenever things got particularly rough, he'd go down and spend the weekend with them. He's away preaching, and Martha, an Al-Anon type, sends the word, Lazarus, he whom you love, is sick. Well, now, you have to understand that what she is saying is, come on down here, you hotshot rabbi, and do something for Lazarus. You've been doing so much for all the rest of the people here. We've fed you, and you've eaten us out of house and home. Come on down here and do something for him. That's what she's really saying. And the apostles know that, and they know Martha, and they know she's going to give them what for if they don't get there. And they try to urge him to go. He says, no, it's not time. And Lazarus dies. And Jesus doesn't even get there for the funeral. And now he says it's time to go. Well, Martha has been looking for him, like the Al-Anon looks for the drunk. She's been eyeballing that road between Jerusalem and Bethany every day. And finally he's coming down the road, and she hot-foots it out to confront him. And she says, and you have to hear the sarcasm in her voice, Rabbi, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. Oh, that Martha, she almost tore the sheet. There she is facing infinite power, but she's also facing infinite compassion. And the Lord looks at her and says, Martha, Martha, thy brother will live again. Thy brother will rise again. And all of a sudden, Martha is changed. And she says, yes, Lord, yes. I know. At the resurrection on the last day. And that's when he says, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will never die. He goes in to see the mourners, and then he says, I'd like to go out and see the cemetery. They're out to see the cemetery. He says, roll the stone away from the door of the tomb. And Martha is back in her Al-Anon personality, and she says, Lord, he's been in there 4 days. By this time, he stinks. Ladies and gentlemen, I surely know that I stink. But I also surely know that I know what Lazarus felt like when he walked out of that tomb. Thank you. See what I got.